So, Mitchell, when you were a child, did you want to be a novelist when you grew up?
Yes, certainly at least from the age of, I'd say 15.
Wow.
At the latest, not earlier. Books were my refuge.
Refuge from what?
Well, I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, and they were my refuge from a dysfunctional world. I think of what we call fiction as a way of approximating truth. And I guess you could say they're a way to try to find something beyond the dysfunction of the world that made sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I heard someone once say that art is a solace for the frustrations of real life. Like it takes the mess of real life and makes it. I'm sorry?
But that's another way of putting it. I mean, you're putting the emphasis there on the subject, right? And I put the emphasis more, my idea is more kind of, I don't want to say my idea, I'm not trying to own it, but the idea that I'm referring to is more like a Platonic idea, like there's an absolute kind of truth out there, and we try to approach it when we craft stories. And also, when we read it, we try to glimpse that. But anyway, I'm going way off here on my own little
That's fine.
craziness.
Where did you grow up?
Well, my father lived in Beverly Hills. He was a cardiologist at UCLA and also with a hospital. My mother lived in Munich, Germany. I went to high school at a boarding school in California called the Kate School near Santa Barbara. Then I went away to college at Yale. Then I went and lived in Paris for 7 years. Then came back to the States.
Did you spend most of your childhood in Beverly Hills?
No. I in Beverly Hills during some of my vacations, but I mean, when I visited with my father, I was in Beverly Hills, but it was never neither. I know you live in Los Angeles, but I have to say, Southern California never felt like home to me.
Well, what has felt like home?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd like to feel that. I've had many places that have been homes. Right now, I'm living outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I lived in, as I say, in Paris for 7 years. I think that a feeling that, a kind of a sentimental feeling that is based on kind of ethnic ties, cause a lot of Jews to feel when they travel to Israel that there's something about it that's home-like. But I can't say that I've ever really felt that any place in the world is really my home.
Except perhaps literature?
Yeah, right. Except maybe the House of Literature. Yes. I must say, Luke, I wasn't expecting this kind of question. It's fine with me, but I feel like I'm revealing a lot about myself here.
Well, we can't have any of that in an interview.
Okay. The interviews I've had so far regarding the book have not gone this direction, but I know that, you're a special kind of guy, so.
Thank you, yeah. Where were you in the social pecking order in high school?
Oh, I think I was outside of it completely. I was, I got very good grades, and I think that I earned some respect from some people for that reason. I got pretty much, I guess, among the best grades in my class, if not the best grades. But that I didn't do that because I wanted to get good grades or to distinguish myself in the pecking order. I just did it because I was interested in learning. But I was really very, very socially awkward, and I guess that's another reason I could find comfort with books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, does that make sense? Is that
Totally, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. When you graduated Yale, what did you want to most accomplish with your life?
I wanted to be a writer. If you look at my Yale yearbook, even though I look kind of weird and geeky, and it does have one thing of value to offer, which is it says writer. It says, professional goal or something, and I put writer there. That was really the only thing I wanted to do.
When did you write your first novel?
Well, I went to France after college, and I had this kind of setup where I was living with a very powerful family who very much at the top of French industrial and French industry and government. And I lived in their chambre de bonne, which is, like slaves' quarters, way at the top of the building, and the 5-story typical French apartment building. So I was up in the 5th, right under what they call a garret, Parisian garret, right under the roof. And my sinecure consisted of having breakfast with the kids and speaking English. Their children spoke English fluently. They had a chauffeur and a maid and a cook and everything else. And they just wanted them to stay and practice. So every year they hired a Yale graduate and a Harvard graduate. They weren't snobs or anything. And one of them had breakfast with the kids and the other had lunch. And that covered rent. It covered rent, and I spent most of my time reading, but also trying to write a novel. And so I was reading a lot of French literature at the time, just pretty much everything. And there was a man that I knew in college. I guess I would call him a mentor. His name is William Styron, an author. And he wrote Sophie's Choice and Confessions of Nat Turner. And he had been very kind to me and interested in my ambitions when I was in college. And one day I was in these people's apartment, the people that I worked for, and I saw there's a very popular television show in France called Apostrophe, which is a book discussion program. And I saw an ad that William Styron was going to do on the show. And I went there. I went to the studio and I pretended like I belonged there. I walked right into the television studio and with my briefcase, and in it I had the manuscript of this book that I had been typing. And I sat through the show and watched him discuss Sophie's Choice on television and on this show. And afterwards, I went up to him and he remembered me and he agreed to read my first attempt at a novel. And he loved it. And he sent me this beautiful letter saying, he doesn't know whether this book is going to be published or not, but I write beautifully and I've got the stuff of a novelist, and he's going to show it to his editor just in case. And he sent it to his editor, Bob Loomis at Random House, who did reject it, and I was absolutely devastated. But that letter, I still have it, and it gave me what I needed to continue with this dream. Although I did take a long detour, working in the film industry.
And is By Fire, By Water the second novel you've written?
Well, if you call that first attempt at a novel, then yes. But I would call that an experiment, an effort to try to figure out how to write a novel. I think William Styron was responding to the fact that I take immense pleasure in the manipulation of words, and he sensed something there, but I think he probably knew perfectly well it really wasn't a novel. So I think By Fire, By Water is my first novel.
And why did you spend so much time in the film industry?
I came back to America with my wife, my fiancée at the time, and we were married here. And we came to Los Angeles for my sister's wedding, which was, under the auspices of my father's, household, let's say. And I didn't have enough money to get back to France, which at that time I did consider my